The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Kyle Richards and her estranged husband, Mauricio Umansky, are addressing the viral photos of him kissing another woman in Mykonos. During the March 11, 2025 episode of RHOB Season 14, the former couple sat down for an emotional conversation about their separation. Turns out that seeing Umansky moving on with someone new wasn't easy for Richards. Umansky brought up the paparazzi pictures himself and apologized to Richards. He insisted that he never intended to hurt her or their children, and claimed that he had no idea he and his mystery love interest were being photographed. Richards accepted Umansky's apology, but expressed concerns about his new partner's intentions. "I don't know what this relationship is. I don't know if this is just a passing thing or a serious thing," she told the cameras. During the conversation, Richards started crying as she reflected on how her marriage with Umansky's had fallen apart. The former couple then hugged each other as Richards wiped away her tears. In a confessional, she admitted that the two of them still cared about each other, which is why it was so hard to accept the reality of their situation. However, in the end, the Bravo Liberty acknowledged that Umansky's photos made their split feel more permanent. "I did not expect my life to go in this direction," Richards concluded. Kyle Richards admits she needs to move on earlier. In the March 4, 2025 episode of RHOB Season 14, Richards reacted to Umansky's viral photos when they first started making rounds on the internet. While driving to a mammogram appointment with her sister, Kathy Hilton, Richards expressed that she was shocked and struggling to process the situation. She confessed that she already knew Umansky was seeing other people, but she wasn't expecting to see it unfold so publicly. Richards added that she didn't want her estranged husband to feel guilty for dating other people. However, she had mixed feelings about his dating life because she believed he was being irresponsible by letting the world in on it. During the conversation, Richards wondered whether her and Mauricio's dynamic would change now that he was officially with someone else. All of this prompted Richards to pull out her phone and remove the word wife from her Instagram bio. She told the cameras that after their separation in 2023, she couldn't even think about making the change or getting rid of her last name. However, Richards claimed that the viral photos made it clear that her relationship with Umansky had shifted. When Hilton suggested that her sister look up the mystery woman, Richards shot the idea down and said that all she cares about is moving on. Tears, truths, and new beginnings. Kyle Richards sat in the plush living room of her Beverly Hills home, her eyes red from crying, her fingers drumming nervously against the armrest of the sofa. The sound of the gentle hum of the chandelier above did little to soothe her mind. It had been a long day, a very long day. The latest episode of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills had aired just hours ago, and the images that had flooded the tabloids and social media were still fresh in her mind. Mauricio, her estranged husband of over 20 years, had been photographed in Mykonos, kissing another woman, a woman whose identity remained a mystery to the public, but whose presence had stirred up a storm of emotions in Kyle. She hadn't expected it to hit her as hard as it did. She had known their marriage was over, or at least that it was no longer what it had once been. But seeing him with someone else, in such a public and intimate way, was another layer of finality she wasn't ready for. The soft sound of the doorbell rang through the house, snapping Kyle out of her thoughts. She quickly wiped her eyes, not wanting to appear too vulnerable, even though the entire world already knew the raw truth. She took a deep breath and composed herself, stepping toward the door. Opening it, she found Mauricio standing there, his face tight with concern. His eyes were apologetic, but the cracks in his usual composed demeanor were visible. Kyle had seen that look on him before, when they were in the thick of their troubles, but it still made her stomach twist. I know you didn't want to see those pictures, Kyle," Mauricio started, his voice low and sincere. He took a step forward, his hand reaching out. I never meant to hurt you. I swear. Kyle's breath caught in her throat, the lump in her chest returning. She wanted to say something snarky, to make a joke out of the situation, but she couldn't. The sadness was too overwhelming. Instead, she nodded silently, stepping aside to let him in. The two of them walked into the living room, and Kyle sat down on the plush couch once again, her eyes darting to the pictures of their children on the mantel. Mauricio followed, sitting on the opposite side of the couch. There was an uncomfortable silence between them. It wasn't the silence of two people who were content with the end of their marriage. It was the silence of two people still deeply connected, but uncertain of where to go next. I didn't want the world to see that, Kyle. Mauricio continued, his voice thick with guilt. You know I never wanted to hurt you. I wasn't even aware the paparazzi were taking pictures. It just happened. Kyle's eyes narrowed as she looked at him. It wasn't that she didn't believe him. It was just that, at this moment, everything felt so complicated. Her emotions were raw, her heart torn between the man she'd spent more than 2 decades with and the reality of what their relationship had become. I know, she whispered. I know you didn't want it to happen like this. There was a long pause, and then Kyle shifted in her seat, her voice trembling as she spoke again. But what does it mean, Mauricio? What does this relationship mean? What am I supposed to do with this? Mauricio looked at her, his brow furrowing as he tried to understand the depth of her pain. Kyle, I don't know what it is. I really don't. I'm just trying to figure things out. You're figuring things out with someone else, Kyle shot back, her voice tinged with frustration. She wiped her eyes quickly, not wanting him to see the tears, but it was no use. They were already falling. Mauricio's expression softened, his face full of regret. I never wanted to make you feel this way. I never wanted to hurt you or the kids. The mention of their children made Kyle's heart twist. That was the one thing that always kept them tethered, no matter how far apart they grew. They shared a family, and no matter how much they drifted, that bond would always remain. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. I don't know how to move forward, Mauricio, she admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. You're dating someone else, and I don't know how to fit into this new version of our lives. I don't expect you to just be okay with this, he said, his voice low and sincere. But I hope you can understand. This wasn't planned. It wasn't what I thought would happen. Kyle took a shaky breath, wiping away more tears. The whole situation felt like too much to process, too much to understand. Their marriage had been in trouble for a long time, but this finality, this moment of seeing him with someone else, felt like a door had been slammed shut that she wasn't ready to walk through. You know, I thought I was prepared for this, she said, her voice catching. But seeing those photos, it's like a reality I wasn't ready for. It makes everything feel so permanent. Mauricio reached out, his hand gently resting on hers. Kyle, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to happen like this. I should have handled things better. I should have been more considerate. Kyle shook her head, pulling her hand back. I don't know what to think, Mauricio. I know we've been struggling for a while now, but I didn't expect this finality. Seeing you with someone else, kissing her in front of the world, it's too much. I understand, Mauricio said softly, but I never wanted to make you feel like you didn't matter. You do matter. You will always matter. Kyle stared at him for a moment, her heart aching with a deep sadness she couldn't quite name. It's just hard, you know. You're moving on, and I don't know if I can. I don't know how to let go of everything we've been through together. Mauricio's eyes softened, and he moved closer, his voice steady. Kyle, I'll always care about you, but we both have to figure out how to move forward, separately. The words stung more than she expected. She had always known it was coming, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel too real. It was like a weight had been placed on her chest, and she couldn't shake it off. I don't want to hold you back from being happy, she said quietly. But I don't know if I could be happy with you dating someone else. I don't know how to move on from this. I don't expect you to be happy about it, Kyle, Mauricio replied. I don't even know how I feel about it. But I need to figure out who I am, just like you need to figure out who you are. Kyle nodded, trying to suppress another wave of emotion. The silence stretched between them again, thick with unsaid words. Finally, she spoke again, her voice small but firm. I'll figure it out. I'll find a way to move on. I just didn't expect it to feel like this. Mauricio nodded, his expression sorrowful. I'm sorry, Kyle. I really am.